Shalom, shalom, shalom. All praise to the Most High, Yah. Giving thanks and praise to the Most High for waking me up to allow me to know that I'm an Israelite of the Bible. Giving thanks to everything that He done for us, even though our ancestors and us messed up. We had to pay a price for that. Giving thanks of the Messiah, the Ruler. What meant for the Messiah, we won't be here today. We'll be somewhere extinct. Giving all thanks to the Most High, y'all, and giving honor to you all in the chat, teaching this word, bringing this truth about the Negroes, the saints, or the Israelites of the Bible. So today we're going to do a little history. We're going to look at the skulls of the Negroes enslaved in Egypt, or the Negroes in America, Psalms 83. So, every now and then I like to back it up because we might have somebody coming into the truth that don't understand or have some doubt that the so-called black people or the Negroes are the true Israelites of the Bible. So every now and then I like to back it up and come back out. Just it might have a sister or brother that's on the fence or trying to have some type of understanding why we saying that we the true Israelites of the Bible. So this time I'm gonna go through. We're gonna look at a video Pastor Kelly did. Shout out to him. I used to go to his assembly when I lived up in Virginia, and in this video he brings out a source by Samuel Morton, and it tells you. And then we watched the video that the skulls that he found in America, right, and the skulls that he found in Egypt, both of them went through something very similar. They was enslaved. And he only found Negro skulls, and he said he did not find no other skulls that was in slavery in Egypt. And when you look at the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, you'll find, right, the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, you'll find that, if you read it, it'll say that Ham is the progenitor of the dark races. The Egyptians, the Canaanites, Put, and the Cushites, but he's not the father of the Negroes. And when you look at the study of the science that they did, even though this man was racist, I don't think he knew the Bible. At the same time, he was showing the world that the Negroes are the true Israelites of the Bible without even knowing. So, of course, if he did, I don't think that this type of source would even be out to this day. And a lot of our people don't even know nothing about this. So I'm going to greet the chat and get right into it. Shalom, Mr. The Original School. Shalom, shalom, Lorraine Yah. All right, that's right. Lorraine Yah. Okay, that's right. These trolls and getting hit with the word. Shalom, shalom, Albany, Georgia. Shalom, Zet Ziru Yah. Shalom, I might have messed up that name. Shalom, Yash. You want to come in? I'll put the link in the chat. Shalom, A-E-P. Shalom. So, I'm going to read and start out in Exodus chapter 1. Let's get the story started. Y'all know the story. This is Exodus chapter 1. And it reads, "Now these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob. Reuben, Simeon, Levite, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher." Now, we know that all these tribes, what we reading here is the 10 tribes of Israel. I mean 12 tribes of Israel. I'm sorry, coming into the land of Egypt, right? Yash, I'm just gonna send an email. I'm sending your email coming in the land of Egypt, and so that's what. All right, so that's what we was reading here. Let me keep on going on. It's telling about the 70 souls come in. Verse 6 says, and Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all the generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increasing abundantly, multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Verse 8. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falls out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, so get them up out of the land. Therefore, they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Patra and Ramsey. Shalom, shalom, brother Yash.
Shalom, shalom.
I'm just reading this Exodus before we go into it. Verse 13. Verse 12. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grievous because of the children of Israel. Man, you getting afflicted and you still having kids? Israel rough. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage and mortar and in bricks and in all manner of service in the field, all their service wherein they made them serve with rigor. And the king of Egypt spake to them Hebrew midwives, of which the name of one was Shapphira and the other was Puah. I think that's how you pronounce it. And he said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, see them upon the stool. If it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men and the children of Israel. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives, said unto them, why hast thou done this thing, and have saved the men, the children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively and are delivered ere the midwives come into them. So the midwives didn't pay attention to the king. They feared the Most High, and they did what was right, and they didn't kill the boys. But the moral of the story, we've seen the Egypt starting to get afflicted and going and being in captivity. So who was these Israelites that came over and Joseph died and they go and started getting afflicted? Who was these people? What's going on, Yash? You got something you want to say about that, or you want to read the chat?
Yeah, I definitely want to greet the chat, because I just signing in, but my grandson ripped the letters off my computer. So I really can't type,
Okay.
I really can't type, but just read on, just read on, but that's how they do at the time, yeah, just read on, because I was just starting to pull it up and I was looking at some other things.
Well, I was stopping right there, and I'm going to pull out some scriptures that's showing that the same people that they enslaved look like them. That's what I was going to pull that out.
And that's what I want to see. Yeah. Oh yeah. I want to see everything. especially the one, you know, how it relates to the over here in the Americas. But at the end of the day, man, it's like
Shalom, sons of Elohim. I'll put the link in the chat if you want to come in. Yeah, I'm gonna pull some scriptures. Let's go to Acts chapter 21. You know, the matter of fact, let's go down Exodus 2 and 19. Exodus 2 and 19. There you go. Hey, there you go. Look, he gonna put Mr. The original school. You got look at all these scriptures he got right here. Oh my gosh. These all tales, you know. Mm-mm. Thank you. I'm about to pull out some of them. But Exodus 2 and 19, I'm gonna go there, and it's talking about Moses, I believe, yeah. And this is something very important. A lot of people miss over. I'm just gonna read 19, but y'all know the more of the story. This is when Moses left, ran off from Egypt after he killed that guy, and the daughter, the king said to their father said, "How is that ye are come so soon this day?" And they said, "An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds. Also drew water enough for us and water the flock." Now, we got to understand these are Midianite women. They are women that they are Shemites, basically, right? So if Moses is an Israelite and they are Shemites, why are they calling him an Egyptian? He probably had Egyptian tire on. But what I'm saying, their skin color must have been somewhat the same for them to say that. They call him Egyptian. If it was a white man, go ahead.
No, I guess not only that, shoot, they later on you find they calling her a damn Cushite, an Ethiopian.
Ethiopian, later on.
So it's like, so what I'm saying is, back in the day, none of us could tell. Nobody knew who nobody was. We all thought we was the same people. We all pretty much looked alike.
Mm-hmm. All looked alike. You're right. That's a good. That's a good idea there. So it's just like today, if I see a brother and when I started to talk to him, he all proper. First thing hit my mind, that brother must be from New York somewhere. You know, it's the way he talked, but he looked just like, you know, like me. Tell he's a so-called black man or Negro. Let's go to Exodus. Let's go to Acts. I'm sorry. Let's go to Acts 21, verse 38. Because this is, remember, this is during the time of the Romans, right? So this is way on up there, right? Now, during the time of the Romans, why are we still looking the same? Then Peter said unto them, this is the wrong one. This is the right one. Acts 21, I'm sorry, and 38. And this is the time of the Romans. And okay, it says, and as Paul, I'm going to start at verse 37. You're looking up. And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, "May I speak unto thee?" Who says, "Canst thou speak Greek?" So he was so amazed that Paul can speak Greek, y'all. Verse 38. Art not thou that Egyptian which before these days matters in uproar and led us out into the wilderness, 1,000 men there were murdered? So he's calling Paul Egypt. Ain't you the Egyptians that started that uproar? All these men got murdered. Even right here, during the time of Romans, Paul was called Egyptian, y'all. And a lot of people is so, you know, we can be so I'm gonna say racist to say it was white Egyptians. It's very racist, you know. Come on, man. we know everybody back then was black. So, Josh, what you think about that? During the time of the Romans, Paul was still mistaken as Egyptian.
Yeah. During that time, Egypt was still, I would say, the majority black. I think the other ones, because when it was when the Greeks was ruling it, they knew the difference between the Greeks and you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It was just whites ruling over blacks back then.
And they was just calling us anything. It's like, you know.
Yeah. Like I said, hey, look, man, it's like you know how they say we all look alike. They were saying it back then, man. They all look alike.
You got anything else you want to say on that? You got any scriptures you want to pull out before I play this video?
Now you go ahead.
I'm gonna play this video right here. Fair use. Can y'all see it?
To understand what's the
Fair use. Can y'all see it? Can you see it, Josh?
Yeah, yep, it's good.
Fair use. Fair use.
to understand the facts here. Samuel Morton was, was a cranium expert, and this is his published writings back in 1844 on his cranium analysis of over 750 craniums, all right, from Egypt. So this is his assessment. This is his findings. This is his conclusion on his discoveries, all right? So this is coming from page 60 of this source. If it will be allowable, if it be allowable to make these data the basis of calculation for the past 35 centuries, it will follow that upward of 10 million of Negroes have been brought as bondsmen in Egypt during that period. So he makes it clear that the Negroes, the slaves, the indentured servants, because you had indentured servitude as well in Egypt, but it makes it clear that it was an upward of 10 millions of Negroes had been bought as bondsmen, and the Hebrew word is abadah, as bondsmen into Egypt. Abadah comes from the primitive root word abad, which abad means to till, cultivate. Okay, so abadah can be used for women and men, that title, ancient Hebrew title. But anyway, upwards of 10 millions of Negroes have been brought as bondsmen into Egypt during that period. Okay. And it goes on to say the vast influx of Negroes into the valley of the Nile must necessarily have left its impression on the physical traits of the Egyptians themselves in modern times, as seen in the Copts and in more distant periods, as proved by the Negroid heads in which both the configuration and expression are too obvious to be mistaken. But it may be inquired, how does it happen that Negroes or their descendants should be found in the catacombs if they constituted a manile or slave caste in Egypt? So he's asking the question, how is it that he's able to discover the same craniums of the Negro slaves right here in the Americas that have been scattered around the world? How is it that he see the same craniums, those points in the craniums, to those that had that were enslaved in Egypt? And again, this is 1844. He was a racist. He was a racist, but one thing they did not undo, when I say they, the science and all that, they did not contest his findings of what he states here about Negro, the same Negroes that was enslaved in the transatlantic world war, the same craniums were found in ancient Egypt, all through there. So again, it's more to the science, not just DNA, right? We have the cranium that is a marker, right? So let's skip over to page 66. He says this. Negroes were numerous in Egypt, but their social position in ancient times was the same that it is now, that of servants and slaves. And so that's why you saw, as I played the clip in the intro, you saw this guy here, this scientist, being shocked when it was discovered that the ancient Egyptian ruler that they excavated for us his tomb, he turned out to be a Negro. He was shocked. He was in. You can see the expression. You can see this the disbelief. And just so happened, his name was Shammai. And all you guys that understand Hebrew, Shammai or Shammai, it means listen with intelligence. It means discern. So, family, they know that they know who's the true people of the book. They know who's the true people of the book. But this is the clip. I'll play it one more time, just so that way you guys can understand. They know when I say they, starting with the scientists, they know who's who, starting from the ancient times moving forward. So that's why you see this scientist here with the look of disbelief on his face.
But the CT scan has one more surprise for Alejandro: Shammai's ethnicity.
Well, they have just told me that Shammai has a Nubian feature, which means that their ruling family was probably Nubian, and that was unexpected.
Examining Shammai's anatomy closely, the thickness of his bones and the shape of his nasal cavity, the anthropologists think he was a black African, likely from neighboring Nubia. A huge revelation that challenges the prevailing image of the Egyptian ruling class.
We always thought the ancient Egyptian elites were Mediterranean type. We always thought the ancient Egyptian elites were Mediterranean type. We always thought the ancient Egyptian elites were Mediterranean type.
Hey, y'all notice he said we always thought the reigning Egyptian elites were Mediterranean types. So not the regular people, just the elites. Can y'all believe this?
No, because that's how they get down. They think they was ruling in the past, they ruling in the present, and they think they're gonna be ruling in the future. That's just how they get down. They think they was Adam and Eve. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like we may have lost our heritage, but they deluded. Most High got us sitting up under a bunch of deluded individuals, and we wonder why the world is in the shape that it's in now. You know, it's crazy.
Wow. Because I was just noticing that how he said the elites. So the other people was black, but the elites was white. People crazy.
Yeah, that's that old you niggers gonna always be on the bottom attitude they got.
Uh-huh.
You know, we was Cain, you was Abel. That's how they living, you know. They know what's up.
And he was really believed to say he was shocked.
Yeah, that's the part that shocked me. I wasn't shocked about them always. We knew that. I was shocked that he was shocked. What?
Yeah.
You mean to tell me that we wasn't ruling over that time? You know? Shit.
But check this out, bud. This is gonna get good. There's not too much long play on it, but I'm not gonna play the whole thing. Not too much long. I want to get to the part where he gets back into that source. It's gonna get good because what we trying to do is who was them people enslaved over there? Fair use.
We always thought the ancient Egyptian elites were Mediterranean type. And in this sense, Shammai is representing the society of the frontier in which different ethnic groups were mixed. At the end, it doesn't matter the color of your skin. Shammai was Egyptian. At the end, it doesn't matter.
You see how he lied right there? That don't say nobody was mixed.
Threw that in real quick.
You see that? These people are devils. They even do science work, archaeology, their own. Like, look, y'all, this is their own stuff. and then he lying again. Show us a skull of a white person coming out of the 14th dynasty, 17th dynasty. Show us that. I bet you won't find. If you do, it'll surprise me. You don't see them about it's around what 310 BC. That's at the end, almost at the end of the age, man. That's when Alexander them came over, and you know them are the ones, when they sometimes they call themselves digging up ancient Egypt, and they dig them up. The ones that came over doing 310 BC to try to trick people.
Yeah. I was gonna say they know who they digging up
Mm-hmm.
because the ancient ones, they've been dug them up, robbed their graves. They've been did that shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these people don't leave their money in their graves. They know better.
Mm-hmm.
They know better not to leave. Shoot, they leave their money in their graves. Their kids will come in there and get it out the same night before you even close that rock. It'll be a fight. They're gonna get that. You ain't closing that till we get ours.
You know what? I never thought about that. That says a lot about even though they're not our people, but they was enslaved. We probably mixed on them.
Mm-hmm.
But black on black.
That's why they ain't even leave no They ain't even leave no pictures of themselves. They so cheap. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
That's something that black
they gotta
people,
white out ours. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. But look, that's something that black people can leave money in their grave and nobody mess with until them idiots came over.
Yeah.
Nothing. I never thought about that. That shows that we're not as greedy as they are when it comes to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. On top of the grave. No, not to touch it. Don't touch that money. Crack might have messed that up now, but
fair use. Yeah, you're right about that.
At one time.
Fair use.
Now, the problem for me, it's not about color. It's not about white and black. This is a very reductive way to talk about things. This is the way that Americans talk about it. I'm very sorry. Like, I come from Egypt. Egypt has a very diverse color palette. People can look like me or they can look deeper skin tone like Anwar Sadat, who comes from a Nubian origin. It's not about black and white. It's not about black and white. It's not about black and white.
It just doesn't matter. 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 It just doesn't.
So, family, they know, and this is why you hear them try to lump everyone together. Oh, well, you know, the Egyptians look like everybody. They generalize it. It doesn't matter. You know, when they get caught with their hands in the cookie jar, suddenly it doesn't matter. But it did matter having that Caucasian Christ image pressed on our people. It does matter when you see that Caucasian hippie looking Christ, you know, images all over in many churches. It does matter when you see these movies and all you see is hippie Christ the hippie, Christ the weed head, Christ the you guys know where I'm going at with it. But then they try to transition over to this so-called Mediterranean appearance, saying that they were all races, they were all different groups, and they meshed and mixed together. No, we're not receiving that. You know, they always want to make it generic, key places generic when it comes to us. All right. So again, Samuel Morton says Negroes were numerous in Egypt, but their social position in ancient times was the same that it is now. That now, the time that he's living in, the Negroes that was enslaved by the Roman Catholic Church, by Christianity, right? In other countries that was under their influence, he's saying those Negroes are the same that it is now of his time as it was back in the ancient times, and that of their social position in ancient times was the same that it now is, that of servants and slaves. So Samuel Morton was clear that the Negroes were enslaved in ancient in ancient Egypt. You can't get around it. You can't get around it. Negroes were enslaved in ancient Egypt. Samuel Morton was also clear that not a single skull from the Scythians or Scythians, however you want to pronounce it, were discovered in ancient Egypt. So why am I saying that? And I'm going to go into a source, but why am I saying that? And why am I bringing that to your attention? Because you have somebody or some people out there from certain spaces that teach that the name stealers that we see today are the same people that were enslaved in ancient Egypt. So let me play two clips, contradictory clip of this particular name stealer who actually admit to that his people are name stealers. And then he gives a lot of contradictory words, such as, hey, no, there's not a shred of evidence that you can that someone of today can be traced back to the Kazarians. But then he openly admits that the Kazarians converted over to Judaism. Here we go. You guys already know this is Sister Carol's favorite person. So let's start off with the clip of him admitting that they are name stealers.
You say, well, where the name Ashkenazi came from? So a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now emigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany, they looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany. So they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken. Okay, it's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false, zero truth to it. Just study the history.
I had to bring the garbage can out. Now, let me play a clip of a couple of pastors who are teaching Genesis 2 and 9 and not Genesis 2 and 9, but Revelation 2 and 9 and Revelation 3 and 9, and teaching it as from the perspective of a group of people taking an identity that didn't belong to them. And they used the phrase or the label Kazarian or Khazars, right? And then I'll play the clip of Dr. Michael Brown, his response.
Reasonableness, and he gave him a choice of three Abrahamic religions. And the three Abrahamic religions being either, at the time we'd say Catholicism, Christianity, the other one is Islam, and the other was Judaism. And so they, in a very pragmatic way, the Kazarians chose Judaism because the Pope was and the Vatican, they were very hands-on, forcible conversions, and so it was not a light. Revelation 3:9. Indeed, I will make those of the synagogue of
stating or tapping into being, or should I say, anti-Semitic tropes. This is his.
Shalom, shalom, Brother Eric.
Hey, what's going on? Shalom.
Talking about we're looking at these bones that was found, and was saying that the only bones they found was Negroes, right? And they did, and then Morton didn't find no other type of structure bones or nobody else that was enslaved in Egypt but the Negroes. I'm almost get to that point, but you got something for to say? I'm going to get back to it right quick.
Nah, go ahead.
Fair use, fair use.
His response, and he shoots himself in the foot, like the gift that keeps giving. Listen to how he contradicts himself.
As far as the alleged conversion of the Khazaris, you can read it in Yehuda Halevi's book, The Khazari, that it may be true that as there is debate and discussion there, Turkic people a little over 1,000 years ago, that some of the leaders or some of the people did, in fact, convert to Judaism and then became part of the larger Jewish people. Khazars as a whole disappear from history. That's it. End of subject. There is no Kazarian mafia. There's not a single Jew on the planet that can be traced back in any definitive way to the Khazars. Zero.
And so you heard the lie.
Yeah, I heard this guy. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I hear him.
See, at first he said that they basically stole the Khazar name. Basically, is what he said. He says no such thing as that. They just took on the name. So the other white guys that were saying reading Revelations 9, they saying they are Khazars, right? Then he comes back and said, okay, yeah, it's true that the Khazars did convert it over, a large number of them, but they just disappeared in history.
Are they the same as the Ashkenazi Jews?
One and the same.
So there you go. I mean, they did convert, but what did they convert to?
Judaism.
Hey yo, and then what they did? He said they just disappeared. Well,
They
don't like to tell. They don't like to tell the whole truth. Why don't you just say what it really is? Then they just merged into the nations, into the identities of the nations where they resided or where they migrated to, while holding on to their conversion. See, they don't like to tell the whole truth because that's what it is. Some became Polish, some became German, some became Slavs, some became Russians. Damn near all of them became Ukrainian. You know what I'm saying? They all over Europe. They became European.
Crazy, man. All right, almost done. Let's get some more. Fair use.
You heard him shoot himself in the feet or in the foot. He says the Khazars converted over, it's true, and they became what? The larger people, if you listen closely to what he said. But then he said they just completely disappeared off the face of the earth. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. They didn't just disappear off the face of the earth. So let's see what Samuel Morton has to say. Because if Dr. Brown and others, like Rabbi Abramson and others that are stating that they are blood descendants of the ancient Israelites and that they were enslaved in Egypt, let's see what Samuel Morton has to say about the Kazarians who are connected to the Scythians. Let's see what he says about them. Let's get into it. Let's see what he says about them. Samuel Morton was also clear that not a single skull from the Scythians, which are synonymous to the Khazars, were discovered in ancient Egypt. Here it is on page 66. We're going to read entry number 9, or should I say paragraph 9? Let me zoom in so you can see it. Paragraph 9. That's what that's the page, rip page effect that you see that I bring up on, that I use when I'm doing these slides. But I can read it straight from here. The national characteristics of all these families of man are distinctly figured on the monuments, and all of them excepting the Scythians and Phoenicians have been identified in the catacombs. So he just made it clear that you cannot find Scythians, you cannot find Kazarians, you cannot find Ashkenazis, you cannot find any of them in terms of their skulls in the catacombs of Egypt.
Now, that right there is a European man doing research on skulls, and you say you can't find basically no white people in these catacombs or skulls that we can say hey, they was enslaved by Egypt. You can't find that. Only thing we can find is Negroes, right? So how in the world some of these people out here now, if you black or Negro, why would you go against this? But I guarantee you they would, because they worrying about Mexicans and Indians. But this right here is a clear cut. You only find Negroes right here, according to this racist guy that did this research on the schools. What y'all think about that?
Like we were just saying, they too cheap to leave their own picture. and had the nerve to be shocked. I was shocked. You ain't had no pictures. You ain't had nothing up in there. You just all of a sudden assumed.
He had a belief.
Never left the yo. If you dropped a penny in the grave, you go back and get it, right? Yeah, you want us to believe you have tons of gold that you later went back and took it out of here. I'm just laughing because, to me, it's really ridiculous. Once the Most High, open you up to the truth, and we like it's like the whole world is trying to catch up to us, but we at the point we could just look back and laugh at these people now. It's like you're really trying.
Yeah, the only people.
Yeah. But listen, we're gonna get our people the cake. But I believe that we're really at the point, and we are. The Most High got us really at the point where we been done stated our case. All we got to do is sit back, and he's gonna have to, because he's gonna force it. It's gonna come to the point where they got to prove theirs. We don't really have to say nothing.
True.
It's getting to the point where they got to prove theirs, and that's what all the fighting is. If we've been quiet and let them keep fighting, eventually they have to prove theirs, because they'll see that, look, we ain't even paying them no mind. We just continuing doing what we're doing because we know what we got all the evidence over here.
Yeah. You're right. Up next is not just the camps. It's black Christians will argue you down with this too. This is ridiculous. Brother Eric, what you think about this findings?
Just thinking about what Brother Yash was just saying, it kind of reminded me of that episode of the Richard Pryor show when they went in that tomb, that Egyptian tomb, and they seen all them black people on the walls and everything. They discovering it, and Richard Pryor got all excited, like, man, these people look just like me. They got afros and all this. So they, end up leaving out, just piggybacking off what he was saying about, them being shocked and amazed. Like, how could you be shocked and amazed to see that these are the original people? How could you think it was your people? What would possess them to think that these were their people? But this is just one source. I like Dr. Samuel Morton's work, because he do a lot of good work revealing that our people were in Egypt and they were the slave class. He go in depth. So I don't even see how anybody could get around that. Anybody who claims they need valid evidence and certified evidence, how do you get around this? I just don't see it.
I don't see it neither, but we got some Christians and other people that's claiming all these other people. But I'm getting some more, and we're gonna stop sharing. Fair use.
So if they are saying that they are descendants of ancient Israel, then the craniums should prove that. This is a slam dunk right here. So I'll read it one more time. It says the national characteristics of all these families of man are distinctly figured on the monuments, and all of them, excepting the Scythians and Phoenicians, have been identified in the catacombs. This is drop the mic moment right here. We just dropped the mic right here. And you guys know, I like to bring this out every now and then. You know, YouTube may try to flash it, but I don't care.
Challenge!
So family, it's simple. Accept the challenge. But we're not going to stop there. Let me give you a source. I'm not, because I don't want to go too deep with the Scythians and Kazarians. I can, but I want to keep it simple. But let me give you one other reference tying the Scythians and Scythians, the Scythians and the Kazarians and the Ashkenazis all together. Remember, Dr. Brown also said that they were a Turkish people. That's the other point I want to make. So who are the Scythians? What's it?
All right. So, that's to me, that's a clear cut. What y'all think? Y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a clear cut. I don't understand how in the world can you, if you're an Israelite, so-called Negro, look at that document, that source of Samuel Morton. And I'd like to give thanks to Pastor Kelly. He did a good job on that. Shout out to him. But that source of Samuel Morton, and it says the only skulls now, because if you look deep into it, he matched our skulls with the Indians, the white folks over here, the Egyptians. I'm talking about the leading class Egyptians. And it says that we look like them on the outside, but we are not. That's why you can read in that, that Bible dictionary, about Ham is the progenitor of the black races, but not the Negroes. This is why. This is why. So this is something that I think it's a slam dunk. If you're an Israelite coming to the truth and you having a little, maybe we are, maybe we ain't. If you look at this video, look at Samuel Morton's work, you should be highly convinced of that. I think that's a slam dunk. I don't see anybody trying to go against it. Well, we know the people that's not us will, but I'm talking about our own people. Guess what? Our own people are going against that. Stupid, but they will.
Yeah, and I think one of the places they might try to use in defense of that, they might try to say, well, Ephraim mixed himself with the people. You know how they try to use that to say that's where they come from Ephraim mixing with the people and that kind of thing. So, but Dr. Morton said that the skulls of that time were the lower class of people, and they were the same exact skulls of the people who served slavery in this nation. So you would still have to justify where these Mexicans and Indians and stuff come from out of that. Still won't find it. But yeah, man, I mean, that's a clear cut. I would agree.
I have another one I want to play from biblical. Hold up. me say it right. Bible, it's a Bible culture. I'm saying that right. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know.
I think you played something for him one day too. I think it's Bible coach. Bible coaching. Let me. Yeah, it's black coaching. Black coaching. Uh,
Sound familiar?
black.
Black Culture Diaries.
Yeah, it's one I want to play. Um, and this one now, we'll go to Psalms 83 because remember, what we doing here is connecting us to the same people that's in Egypt, right? And you know what? When we think about it, right? You know how we go do the 400-year prophecy and all that? It's like a connection that you can't even, you got Israelites enslaved in Egypt. They come out of Egypt, right? They cross, they go into the wilderness 40 years. Later on, they end up crossing over. You know the story. You had to defeat the giants, Jericho. We was talking about that the other day. Looked at that, a lot of people starting to use, what's her name? Rahab the harlot. Oh, man. Y'all just don't believe. And then after Rahab the harlot, I think, brother, yeah, what's that scripture that tells from the Jericho defeat, and we defeated them? No, from the splitting, dividing up the lands, Moses to Samuel, what, 450 years? Is that right?
Yeah, that's Acts 13 and 20.
Yeah. So then you got from there, we go into Judges, then we go to the king, King Saul, King David, King Solomon. Then after King Solomon, that's the downfall, which I think it started with the King Solomon. But that's the downfall, right? Of going back into captivity. And so, you know what? I think I do. Yeah, they did found the skulls of Negroes in the Levant area. The oldest bones they found, they said, matches African Americans in the Levant area, what they call the Levant. But when we go there, then we go to the Northern Kingdom captivity, Southern Kingdom captivity. So we got the Northern Kingdom, then Southern Kingdom. And then when we come back, we get into our land, but we still subject under, Persia, Medes, Greece, then Rome. Then we get kicked out and taken to slavery all over the world. That's the part of the scattering. A lot of us run into Africa, right? I mean, what I'm saying, when we read the Bible, we don't have to add nothing. The Messiah said, basically run towards the mountains. When you run towards the mountains, and when you look, but as basically we ran back towards Egypt. We always did that, right? Africa. So what I'm saying is that we following the pattern all the way down to Africa. Now, where did we get picked up? Starting to get slavery again, 642 AD, Arab slavery out of Africa. Then 1455, 1500s out of West Africa. I mean, it's like what I'm saying, if we can be innocent, we can read these scriptures and be very innocent and don't have to add, don't have to subtract. And I guarantee you, all the evidence leads up to us. We ain't got to do nothing. Everybody else, they got to make up this, they got to twist this, they got to do this. We don't have to do nothing. From the beginning of Egypt, always from where we at in America and around the world, while we were scattered to this day. All we got to do is follow the history and the scriptures. I mean, this is point blank. So why do people try to say we are not the ones that's in slavery in Egypt?
I think in doing that, that falls under the Psalms 83 category, because if you can make that connection, then we wouldn't have this issue like you've been saying. It's just like even today when it comes to DNA. Right now, all of a sudden, DNA doesn't matter. And this is speaking of those of our own people who dismiss DNA. Now it doesn't matter, but with DNA, we can see that our people are traced to a people still in the region that we were taken from and brought over here. And when they do those people's DNA, they see that their DNA traces them back to the ancient land of Israel. And so this has been proven many times, but I think to answer that, why do they do it? I think it's because of the Psalms 83 category, or the Psalms 83 conspiracy of the nations.
Wow, right on point. That's why I put at the end Psalms 83. Right on point. Oh man.
Oh, I just noticed that.
Yeah, you said it. That's what I put at the end of that Psalms 83. What do you think, Yash? Oh my gosh, it's right on point. Man.
Yeah, even that, I always thought it was it just always goes right. I always take it all the way back to the when Esau sold his birthright, and they was always spending their time plotting on how to obtain both, and they was always watching us, and they was trying to figure out. They was really trying to. They always knew the way to weaken us with these idols and all these false gods, and but they finally figured out the perfect way to do it was to match what we did. You know what I mean? To match it, and they didn't figure out that until John Hyrcanus forced them to convert, and because these people are just so wicked inside, and it's always been their desire to rule over us, because they felt cheated. They felt cheated because they got busted. See, the reason why he sold him his birthright, because he never even honored it. It's not that what I mean by he didn't honor it. He didn't not only honor the birthright, but he didn't honor the deal that he made. You know every deal these devils make, they break. Every contract, every treaty, everything. They feel that they can break it whenever they want to. They'll have you write a contract. They'll tear that contract in your face. This is how these people get down. And that's what they was doing. They was always plotting on the way to overtake us. And they said, shoot, let's just, back to Psalm 83, let's just wipe them out. Let's wipe out their memory. But we're going to slide up in there. They ain't tell them in that agreement, we're going to slide up there and act like them. They just forced everybody else to have to keep their mouth shut, because then, you know, everything will fall apart.
Get that Psalms 83, y'all. Anyone y'all want to read it?
Sure, pull it up.
Psalms 83. Let's get that and read it. Let's see exactly what's going on and why is that. Yeah, you know, you see that, brother.
So that's what they needed, though. They needed somebody, you know, to wipe out our name, to keep it down. They needed somebody, or they figured out, hey, this is what they figured out. Hey, somebody need to go in there and fake like these others to throw the world off. And that's why they're in a turmoil now, because they've gotten beside themselves with this. They just gotten beside themselves and said we can do whatever the heck we wanted to. And what's anybody going to do to stop it? Because none of y'all got the nerve to tell these folk the real truth.
Y'all know anything about that right there?
Oh yeah, you know, but I always that's just something that I always thought. I felt because it said Noah, when he divided up the lands between the brethren, he gave Shem, Ham, and Japheth their enlightenments. But it said in the latter years, then the earth was divided. And then the scriptures also tells us that it was in the days of Peleg that the earth was divided. So we know if Noah divided the earth, then this division that happened in the days of Peleg wasn't wasn't like a redistribution of the land, but I believe, yeah, it was a formation of the surface of the earth. And that's just my thought.
Yasha, Cam on. I don't know if you wanted it on or not.
Oh, damn. Yeah, I don't even know where my thing is. Okay. Still don't know what okay, that's it though.
Right. All right. So we're gonna. You clicked off, yeah. Look at that Psalms 83 here. I'm gonna read it. It says a song or you got it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I forgot where I was, man. I mean, I forgot all about that. Yeah, a song or Psalms of Asaph. Keep not thy silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up their head. See, they hate the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance.
Mm.
For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom, that's his churches, the Ishmaelites and the Ishmaelites, of Moab and the Hagarenes, that's their mosques, Gebel, Ammon, and Amalek.
Islam.
And Islam and Judaism, Talmudism, that's Amalek, Talmudism. And the Philistines,
That's
with
that.
the inhabitants of Tyre.
That's that Egyptologist.
Asher's joined with them. They have helping the children of Lot. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
all these nations got together at that time. They all got together, and these the heads, the heads, the world powers at that time. They all got together with one consent and said, we ain't gonna let these people rule over us. And what they did was, as time go on and as they morphed into different identities and changed their names and all this stuff, and they kind of broadened, they always, they renewed themselves through treaties. And I believe their last treaty was the United Nations.
Never looked at that like that. Probably was.
Yep, that was their renewed charter, the United Nations. And at the same time, when that was being formed, around that same time, I believe the Rockefellers formed the Council of Christian Churches, whatever that was, the CCC.
Yeah, Roman Catholic. Yeah.
Yeah, to bring everybody back under the order of the Roman Catholic Church. Exactly.
I think, Earth, did you do something on that about a lot of religions coming out of that Roman Catholic one time? I think you did.
Yeah, we talked about that. Talked about how Islam and everything came out of it.
Mm-hmm. So this is another one I want to play. It's not that long, so I'm gonna let it play. You can stop as it go. But this is the thing. When we talking about our slavery, right? And we got other nations saying, "Oh, my people went in slavery, and my people," has no, and this ain't nothing to brag. We're not bragging on it. We just telling the truth what happened. Just like when the Mexican guy came on last week, I think so. He said, "Oh, my people been treated bad, but not near like y'all." See, he was honest about it. But whenever we talk about what we happened to us, a lot of people want to, knock it down. They don't want to. They don't want to acknowledge that we had the worst of all slaveries. And it's another thing. If the Israelites we can read and do around is going to be very low, right? And the enemies are going to be very high. And if we're not the Israelites, then the Bible got to be wrong, man. I mean, it don't even make sense.
And you know what? And none of them can really say that about we've been treated bad, because all these people have been treated bad by governments, their governments of their people that they install.
Mm-hmm. We don't even have a government.
We don't have one. We don't even have one. If we really had our way, we wouldn't be picking from these clowns. They'd be sitting before us.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you something else. I like looking at other stuff like Black culture or Black history, African history. I'm gonna tell you why. When you look at them, they might not know. They saying the exact same thing what the Bible saying, not even know.
Yep, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah,
That's like having an outside source confirming exactly what the Bible said.
yeah. This guy's gonna name all these nations, y'all. Up at the end, close to the end. I wish I knew exactly what I was saying. He named 7 of them. We know it's a little more than that on Psalms 83, but he named 7 of them. And guess what? The 7 he named, most of them come out of the European nations. Now I want y'all to think about it. 7. How many kings, how many horns was riding on? Well, 7 horns right on the one. This is crazy, man. This guy, I wonder, do he understand that he's talking about the Bible without even knowing? It's pretty good. So y'all got something y'all want to say before I play this other one?
Yeah, 7 heads. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's all it is. They reduce them. They contract and expand as they want to. They could be G7. They could be G8. They could be G20. They be morphing to throw you off. You know what I'm saying?
you're right.
But it does speak of 7 specific heads.
7 heads. You're right.
And Japheth had 7 sons. So let's go and get some.
All right. We'll play this one right here, y'all. We can stop. Y'all want to stop it? Just let me know. Fair use, y'all. Fair use.
But one institution stands out for both its global scale and its lasting legacy.
Numbers involved in the Atlantic slave trade are truly staggering. From 1500 to 1880 CE, somewhere between 10 and 12 million African slaves were forcibly moved from Africa to the Americas, and about 15% of those people died during the journey.
The majority of enslaved Africans were taken from 6 primary regions: Senegambia, Sierra Leone and the Windward Coast, the Gold Coast, the Bada Benin, the Bada Biafra, and West Central Africa, also known as Congo and Angola. An estimated 12.4 million people were loaded onto slave ships and carried through what became known as the Middle Passage, which moved across the Atlantic and included many different destinations.
Once in the Americas, the surviving slaves were sold at a market very similar to the way cattle would be sold. After purchase, slave owners would often brand their new possession on the cheeks, again, just as they would do with cattle. The lives of slaves were dominated by work and terror.
The idea that I am not human, that I have no soul, that I'm a beast. Brand me, burn me, whatever, and no recourse. Nothing.
The history of humanity is filled with oppression, dominance, war, and slavery. Since the beginning of time, people in different parts of the world have forced their fellow humans into slavery. The tale of the Atlantic slave trade is the history of millions of Africans who were forced out of their communities by European slave traders and shipped across the Atlantic in conditions of great cruelty. When Portugal and Spain started conquering and establishing colonies in the New World in the early 1500s, they forcefully made the Indians work their plantations. However, European diseases and the violence of conquest led to the death of many of the Indian slaves. This led to a labor shortage in Europe.
Y'all heard that?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? 90 years ago, right? I mean, this is crazy. Look, they had the Indians, but the Indians couldn't do it, y'all.
But they, that's
They
another
Israelites,
one.
but they couldn't do it. They did it in Egypt, but they couldn't do it in America. Egypt is what? Gets to 130 degrees, but you can't do that in America. Come on, y'all.
But they try to use that to still say they the people.
Crazy, man.
Man, they wasn't building kingdoms. They was building teepees. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. They couldn't do it. They couldn't do it.
They were more like wanderers. We was building nations.
All right, fair use.
And made the Europeans look towards Africa for a solution. As voyages to Africa progressed, and with many expeditions by Portuguese and Spanish explorers, Africa became a major source of supply of slaves to Europe. In the Spanish West Indies, as well as the Portuguese colonies in Brazil, the Indian slaves were gradually replaced by Africans. These Africans were stripped of their identity and occupation. To refer to them as just slaves is incorrect, because before being captured by the European, many of them were farmers, merchants, soldiers, musicians, goldsmiths, blacksmiths, and many more. They were husbands.
Hey, y'all. Now, y'all heard this? Before they were slaves. Look all the stuff that we was doing. And we can read that in the history as a historian of about the Israelites, what all they was doing when they came to Africa. All they had, all type of talents and stuff. They had their own laws. He's saying the same stuff right
here. And that's why they ain't gonna go get nobody. They're not gonna conquer nobody who's not known to be able to do all these things, because see, they too lazy to do their own work. We came here with skill, man. We came here, doctors, scientists, navigators, all that stuff. All that. They have us sailing their boats down to pick up the cotton for them and sail it back overseas and bring it back and be slaves.
Wow.
That's how deep that went.
I think that book, if I'm not mistaken, I haven't read it, so I just heard somebody say it, not all of it anyway. Babylon Timbuktu, I think it mentions that in that book.
Listen, we did everything. You'd be surprised. I mean, you wouldn't even be surprised, because we do everything now. They gotta hold you down because they know you'll do everything.
Okay. All right. Fair use. You got something you want to say here?
I was just gonna say, when you think about the inventions in this nation and all the things our people did, it's amazing how we don't even control any of the industries. And a lot of this stuff is things that revolutionized the world, and so the prophecy is true about us planting grapes, building houses and everything, and not profiting and benefiting from our labor.
So true, man. So true. And but see, you see what it says, what school never told you. Part of Psalms 83, right?
Yeah.
Tell you a little bit. All they tell you slave. That's it. That's all I knew anyway. Till I got older. Fair use.
Fathers, wives, children, and mothers. They had origins and heritage. But when the Europeans came and took over their communities, they became captives and had to be boarded on large ships and taken to Europe. The European slavers dispersed them across the Americas and different parts of Europe. They were forced to lead lives under terrible conditions and face severe labor conditions. they were stripped and flogged and forced to work very long hours, often under terrible weather and health conditions. The transatlantic slave trade transported between 10 million and 12 million enslaved Black Africans across the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas. You might have heard of the triangular trade, right? And how Africa was a major part of this trade, although suffering economically, while the other two parts that made up the triangle enjoyed huge economic benefits. We'll get to that shortly. The first slave voyage from Africa to the Americas is believed to have sailed in 1526, but even before this period, Africans were bought as slaves directly from Europe, and even native inhabitants of America were also enslaved by European explorers. Before 1518, the Spanish monarchy didn't permit the transportation of African slaves from Africa, not due to a sense of moral value or humanity, but because they believed Africans were barbaric and that they would corrupt the European society and introduce pagan and non-Christian practices to the country. However, over the years, due to economic reasons, there was a U-turn in that decision, and on August 18, 1518, King Charles V granted a charter to Lorenzo de Goravade to transport 4,000 slaves directly from Africa to the Spanish-American colonies. Over time, King Charles changed the law established by his grandparents and then permitted slaves to be brought into Spanish colonies in America from Africa on the condition that they would be converted to Christianity during their voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. With this new decree in place, there was an explosion in the number of slaves moved from Africa.
Y'all see the wiping away of the remembrance of our people right there. The convert, come on, man.
Yep.
This is sad, man.
Not only that, because that was part of their craftiness. That was part of their crafty counsel to get us to first get us to convert to Christianity. And they did that to the young, because they killed the old. But they did that in order to provoke our Elohim against us. And it worked.
Yeah.
But then that's also what the Most High said would happen. He said we would serve other gods, wood and stone and different things like that. Once he scattered us among them, he said this would happen.
All right, fair use.
Africa to America. There was an immediate expansion of the slave trade in the Western Hemisphere. European slave traders gathered and imprisoned the enslaved at forts on the African coast, and then brought them to the Americas. Generally, the European slave traders did not participate in the raids because their life expectancy in sub-Saharan Africa was less than a year due to the widespread malaria infection.
This game-changing technology is targeting fast food. Meet Flippy, the AI-powered kitchen robot.
So the majority of people that were transported in the transatlantic slave trade were people from Central and West Africa that were captured by other West Africans and sold to the Western European slave traders. The transatlantic slave trade was essential to the whole economics of the triangular trade route, and European colonies in America needed the supply of slaves for their plantations. Speaking of essential, it's essential for you to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. They don't want us sharing stories like this, but we're going to continue anyway with your support. The triangular trade. Now, let's dive a little deeper into what the triangular trade route was all about. The triangular trade route is simply the trade structure that operated across the Atlantic region. This triangular trade route across the Atlantic took goods from Europe to Africa. Some of the goods taken to Africa include arms, textiles, and wine. On the other side of the triangle was the movement of African slaves to the Americas and the West Indies. The last side of the triangle was the movement of raw materials such as sugar, coffee, tobacco, rice, and cotton produced on American plantations back to Europe. The triangle involved 3 continents, with Europe providing the capital, Africa providing the labor, and America providing the land and resources. There was always a supply to the European market. The story of the transatlantic slave trade involves the story of all people in the 3 continents, but most importantly, those involved in the Middle Passage voyage. The trade route that transported slaves is known as the Middle Passage. The voyage is often marked with a lot of difficulties and even death. Depending on the weather, the voyage could take about 3 to 6 months. The passage was so brutal that the ships not only lost the people being transported as slaves, but in some cases, the crew also lost their lives. The mortality rate for sailors on slave ships was approximately 20%. The ships had a particular design and varied in size and passenger capacity. The conditions of these ships were inhumane. The African slaves were locked up below the deck in cramped quarters and only had a little opportunity to be out in the sunlight, and they were forced to carry out certain enforced exercises in the form of dancing to ensure that they were healthy and in good posture when they get to Europe. Inside of these decks was sticky and filled with the stench of dirt, feces, and urine. Research published in 1794 estimated that a man inside the deck had just a space of 6 feet by 1 foot 4 inches, and a woman had 5 feet by 1 foot 4 inches. The girls had 4 feet 6 inches by 1 foot. The air inside the deck was hot, stale, and filled with the incessant smell of dirt and human excreta. The slaves suffered from starvation and thirst, and only had 24 ounces of water every day, i.e., the equivalent of 2 12-ounce soda cans of fluid per day. Their major food was horse beans and rice. The captives were packed tightly in tiers below decks and were chained together, hands and feet. The voyage was characterized by many difficulties, and the captives were faced with issues that included epidemic diseases and attacks by pirates. They also experienced physical, sexual, and psychological abuse by slave traders and crewmen. An estimate by historians put it that between 15 and 25% of the enslaved Africans bound for the Americas died during this voyage. The conditions were so severe that only a tiny percentage of the Africans transported in the slave trade came directly to North America. Just about 4% of the total Africans transported, not more than 400,000, arrived in North America directly. A vast majority of the slaves were sent to the Caribbean and South America, and almost half of the slaves that were captured and transported out from Africa, totaling about 5 million, were sent to Brazil. I know you will be wondering how thousands of slaves couldn't overpower hundreds of crewmen. Well, there was one popular situation where African slave trades revolted and took over their ships. The detail of this story is as chilling as it is fascinating. We will get to that shortly, but keep in mind that the slave traders were armed and typically had the slaves in chains before transporting them. Anyways, let's finish up on the journey and the economics of the transatlantic slave trade. And while we may think that all slaves transported out of Africa were through the transatlantic route, that is not entirely true. The transatlantic slave only made up for half of the total slaves traded and transported out of Africa. It is reported that from AD 650 to 1900, Islamic traders were also exporting slaves out of Africa and sent out a total of 10 million slaves to Arabia, Yemen, Iran, India, and Iraq. The slaves were transported across the Sahara Desert, the Red Sea, and the Indian Ocean, while some slaves were also enslaved but remained in Africa. Many of the slaves captured and transported in the transatlantic slave trade were taken from the region bordering the Gulf of Guinea. The slave activities in this region were excessive, that the section of the African coast in countries like Togo, Benin, and Nigeria was even referred to as the Slave Coast. A majority of the slaves were taken from West Central Africa. In the early stages of the transatlantic slave trade,
I chose to launch my business with LegalZoom. They keep the process simple and efficient. You can launch your business.
the Portuguese generally bought Africans who were captured as slaves during tribal wars. But as the demand for slaves increased, the Portuguese began to enter the interior of Africa to forcibly take captives. In the 1690s, the number of people taken out of Africa.
Now, y'all heard that? Talking about the Portuguese, right?
Yeah.
And the Arab slave trade. Y'all heard this? This is all what Daniel saw in the future of us, right? And this guy is talking about this, not even think. I don't know if he's thinking about the Bible or not. He's just giving history. That's what I'm saying. We don't have to lie about the history. We don't have to manipulate. We don't have to twist stuff. But everybody else claimed to be Israel. They got to twist, lie, and all kinds of stuff. We don't have to do that. Everybody know this history. I ain't gonna say everybody know this because they don't. Especially our people, they don't know the history. Some of our people say, "Oh, my people never been enslaved." This is completely done. But when we get to, he's talking about the Spain, well, Portugal, right? and how they began to force their way in the interior of Africa, right? What do the scriptures say if a man steals a man and sells that man be found in his possession? That man should be put to death, right? This is what part of what they did. Wow.
Yep. I think one of the strange things you hear people say sometimes is, you know, you Black Hebrew Israelites identify with the curses. You know, but true believers identify with the blessings. You understand? But what blessings do you identify with when you don't have your true identity? You're not in the land that you belong in, right? Your understanding of the Bible is non-existent. You don't know who you are according to the Bible. Subject to all these payments. It's like what blessings? The only blessings we have is the promise of our redemption. He made it clear that these curses will be a sign and a wonder and upon our seed forever. So yes, this is how you identify who the true people of the Most High is.
Most definitely, man. Anything you want to say if I start playing this again, Josh? All right. Well, fair use, fair use.
Africa yearly reached about 30,000, and a century later, the number grew to about 85,000 per year. During the 1700 and 1850, it was estimated that more than 8 out of 10 Africans were forced into the slave trade, successfully crossed the Atlantic. In the period between 1821 and 1830, about 80,000 people were leaving Africa yearly, and within the next 20 years, before the abolition of slave trade, over 1 million more Africans were sent across the Atlantic to America. By 1820, almost 4 Africans for every 1 European had been transported across the Atlantic, and 4 out of 5 women who crossed the Atlantic were from Africa. The majority of enslaved Africans brought to British North America arrived between 1720 and 1780. The Africans who were sent to Brazil were mostly from Angola, and those who were transported to North America, including the Caribbean, were taken mainly from West Africa. Although just about 6% of African captives were sent to British North America in 1825, the US population included about 1/4 of the people of African descent in the Western Hemisphere. Interestingly, the condition of slavery in America was totally different from that in the US. But before we delve into these mind-boggling details, let's talk about the revolt of 1839. Remember, I mentioned this earlier. In 1839, slave traders were once again hoping to get another shipment of slaves across the Atlantic. But unlike previous voyages, they were not ready for the surprise this particular voyage would be bringing their way. The slave ship named Amistad had about 100 slaves on board. As the ship moved near the coast of Cuba, the unwilling passengers of the ship, who were recently abducted from Africa, numbering about 53, revolted aggressively. The revolters were led by Joseph Sink. They killed the captain and cook, and only spared the life of the Spanish navigator so that he can sail them home back to Sierra Leone. However, the navigator managed to sail the Amistad northward. 2 months later, the US Navy intercepted and seized the ship off Long Island, New York. The ship was towed to New London, Connecticut, and the mutineers were held in jail in New Haven, Connecticut. This event had significant political and legal repercussions in the American abolition movement. At that time, the Spanish embassy demanded that the African slaves are returned to Cuba, and this led to the 1840 trial in Hartford, Connecticut federal court. New England abolitionist Louis Tappan was successful in drawing public sympathy to the Africans and was able to battle it with the pro-slavery US government. However, the US president at the time, Martin Van Buren, ordered a Navy ship sent to Connecticut to return the Africans to Cuba immediately after the trial. The interesting part of this incident was the legal proceeding that ensued. The prosecutors argued that as slaves, the mutineers were subject to the laws governing conduct between slaves and their masters. And this is where it gets interesting. The trial testimony showed that while slavery was legal in Cuba, the importation of slaves from Africa was not. The judge therefore ruled that the Africans were not merchandise, but were victims of kidnapping, and so had the right to escape their captors in any way they could. When the U.S. government appealed the case before the U.S. Supreme Court the following year, former President John Quincy Adams was able to win the court ruling in favor of the Amistad rebels. The Supreme Court upheld the judgment of the lower court through contributions from private and missionary societies. The 35 surviving Africans secured a passage home. They arrived in Sierra Leone in January 1842 alongside 5 missionaries and teachers who later founded a Christian mission in the country. While we could definitely blame the Europeans for the activities of the Atlantic slave trade, Africans were also involved in slave trade activities. Africans were involved in kidnapping adults and stealing children for the purpose of selling them. They used European intermediaries.
Now, y'all heard this? It's another thing in history. They use Africans selling Africans, but he actually gonna clear that part up as it keep going on. Y'all hear that?
Yep.
Fair use.
Or agents to sell off these captives in exchange for merchandise or arms. In most cases, those sold into slavery were usually from a different ethnic group than those who captured them.
You heard that? Those sold in slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all heard that? This guy right here is on point. Those sold in slavery is from a different ethnic group. So when we go to Joel chapter 3, it tells you Tyre and Zidon, even in what? Even in Psalms 83, it mentioned Tyre in there and the whole coast of Palestine. What was they doing? Selling us to the
Trade.
Trading, yeah. Fair use.
Them. And it didn't matter if they were enemies or indigenous of a neighboring village. The captive slaves were stripped of any identity they had and simply referred to as other. They were not seen as part of the people of the ethnic group or tribe. Also, while African kings were very much interested in protecting their villages, in some instances, thieves and criminals were sold out into slavery as a way to get rid of them. Many other slaves were gotten through raids at gunpoint, which were organized by different ethnic groups, and in some instances, as a joint venture with the Europeans. Also recorded in the book, Daughters of the Trade, Atlantic Slavers and Interracial Marriage on the Gold Coast, the author, Pernille Ibsen, shared that Africans on the Gold Coast, which is present-day Ghana, also participated in the slave trade through intermarriage.
Picture this. You're sitting at home alone watching YouTube videos, wondering why you can't find the motivation to do the things you need or want to do.
The term used was Kasari, which gets its origins from Portuguese and means to marry. Kasari was used to form political bonds and economic connections between the slave traders and the Europeans. In the initial stages of slave trade, it was common practice for the powerful West African families to marry off their women to the European traders in alliance and to further enforce a syndicate. While the marriages had to be performed based on African customs, the Europeans offered no objection as they were fully aware of how vital these connections were to the success of their businesses.
Now, y'all understand right here, it's talking about the ones that was catching us and selling us to them. They was marrying their daughters off to the Europeans. I want to get that clear because some people like, see, no, they wasn't messing with us right there at that time. Look what they was doing. They was marrying their daughters off to them. It's crazy, man. Now we can understand why some black people act the way they act. And so I have to say that because you got some black people look just like us, right? Deep down in their history, they got a white great parent, and guess what? They probably weren't even an Israelite. They probably was a Hamite. This is why they fight so hard against us. They could come from this type of lineage right here. When they was the ones, Tyre Zidon was selling us, they was giving their daughters to them. The Bible tells us not to do that, but they was willfully doing it. They was capturing us, they was against us and selling us right here. So now we can see black people. Now we can understand why some black people that look like us act the way they act, y'all.
That's true.
Yeah. That's why everybody's Israel is not Israel. We can see that now. They can be black as tar, like Michael Jordan, because they don't mix back into black. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Oh, man, this is crazy. Almost done. Fair use.
In the initial stages, we may argue that Africans had no idea of the exact condition of the slave trade and the experience of those sold into the slave trade. However, according to Robin Law, there is a possibility that the royal elites of the Dahomey Kingdom must have had an informed understanding of the fates of the Africans sold into slavery. This is because the King of Dahomey sent diplomats to Brazil and Portugal who returned with information about their trips. Also, some of the elites of Dahomey had experienced slavery in America before returning home. So the only opposition the Kingdom of Dahomey had against slavery was the law that prohibited the enslavement of a fellow Dahomeyan. Anyone caught doing this faced the death penalty. And while the kingdom was against this, they had no issue with the institution of slavery. The case was different on the Gold Coast, which is present-day Ghana. Here, elites sent their kids to learn about the slave trade from the Europeans by sailing with them and living inside their forts. Some even sent their children to Europe and America to be educated. Elites on the Gold Coast also had agreements with the Dutch and British governments to rescue some of their friends who were tricked into slavery in America. However, a common assumption by many Africans who were not aware of the true purpose of the Atlantic slave trade was that the Europeans were cannibals who planned on cooking and eating their captives. This rumor even made it more distressing for the captives who were locked in ships sailing to Europe. The transatlantic slave trade led to an uncountable loss of lives for both captives in and outside America. A BBC report indicated that more than 1 million people are thought to have died during their transport to the New World. More died soon after their arrival due to terrible health conditions, although the number of slaves that died when bought as slaves is unclear. One thing we are sure of is that this number may exceed the number of those that survived to be enslaved. The Atlantic slave trade led to the destruction of lives and cultures. It is estimated that about 12 million slaves entered the Atlantic trade between the 16th and 19th centuries, and about 1.5 million died on board slave ships. And apart from those who died in the Middle Passage, it is also estimated that many Africans were killed during the slave raids and wars in Africa. Canadian scholar Adam Jones has characterized the deaths of millions of Africans in this period as a genocide. He referred to it as one of the worst holocausts in human history. Many believed that these deaths were not intentional and it was in the slave owners' interest to keep slaves alive and not exterminate them. Jones argues that the killing and destruction were intentional, whatever the incentives to preserve survivors of the Atlantic Passage for labor exploitation. To revisit the issue of intent already touched on, if an institution is deliberately maintained and expanded by discernible agents, though all are aware of the hecatombs of casualties it is inflicting on a definable human group, then why should this not qualify as genocide? Saidiya Hartman, an American writer and academic focusing on African American studies, argues that the deaths of enslaved people were incidental to the acquisition of profit and the rise of capitalism. She argues that death wasn't a goal of its own, but just a byproduct of commerce, which has the lasting effect of making negligible all the millions of lives lost. Incidental death occurs when life has no normative value, when no humans are involved, when the population is, in effect, seen as already dead. Saidiya Hartman goes on to say that although unlike the concentration camp or the Gulag, the Atlantic slave trade also led to the millions of corpses. In this case, extermination was not the major goal. It was a major corollary.
Y'all understand what she's saying? She was saying they weren't trying to kill us, but it was a lot of us died because they wanted to save us to do, work in America around the world. So when we look at other people like when they came to the Aztecs, how they killed off all the men, they didn't do that to us. When they went, and how they enslaved the Indians and they couldn't do it, they basically died off. So it was a totally different. When it comes to us, they weren't even killing. You notice you never find why they said we're gonna kill the man to keep the women. They didn't do that. That's what she's talking about here. Y'all still on here?
Yeah.
So we almost at the point right now. Brother Eric, you still on here? All right, fair use. Almost done.
To the making of commodities.
Watch this.
Who do we blame? While we could blame the Germans for the genocide attempt on the Jews, who do we blame for this slave trade? 7 nations were actively involved in the activities of the slave trade and took most.
Y'all heard that? You heard that, Yash?
Mm-hmm.
7 nations. What he's saying. He don't realize what he's saying though. He said 7 nations was actively involved in the slave trade. It was more than that, but he said 7. Wow. Psalms 83, y'all. Watch this.
Most of the slaves to their colonies in the New World. We have the Portuguese, the British, the French, the Spanish, the Dutch, the Americans, and the Danish. The major sources of slaves include Angola Coast, Bight of Benin, Bight of Biafra, Gold Coast, Senegambia, Southeast Africa, and Indian Ocean Islands, Sierra Leone, and Windward Coast. The presence of European slavers also affected how the legal code in Africa worked. According to Kamani Nahusi, many African societies changed the punishment for certain crimes and the way they responded to certain offenders.
Ali and Anna seemed so perfect. And what people didn't know was she was screaming.
Hello? Y'all back? Y'all here?
Yeah.
All right. So y'all heard he said 7 nations, and he named all the European nations. Ain't that something? We know it was more than that, but 7 nations he named out, right? 7 nations. And y'all, anybody read the Bible and follow that? This ain't representing Israel, the so-called Negroes. We lost our heritage and remembrance.
Hey, Kadar, your mic kind of messing up.
I thought it was me.
Yeah, it's messing up real bad.
Yeah. He sounded like a Hemi for a second.
That happened before. It's gonna be, if it's hot, don't.
Now. You gotta turn off your car. Turn that diesel truck off. Nope. Look at Yeah, your sound is all beat up, Kadar. There you go. He was killing us. I said 2, Kadar. Oh, but what I want to say before he come back on, and see what they ain't even really saying, like when I did my research, it was like 100 million went over the Middle Passage, and only 10 million survived. Same with the Arab slave trade. You know, it was 1/10 of us left. When he said, "I'm gonna cause you to go through the fire, and 1/10 will make it," that was the fire. The people be expecting a whole lot worse. But can you imagine laying on your back for 4 months in your own crap while you eating horse food and horse pellets and daggone 2 glasses of water. What's worse than that?
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
Sound better?
Now it's just loud.
Better than what it was. Yeah, now it's loud.
How about now?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I was saying that you heard when it says he said the 7 nations. I mean, hey man, we can't even make this stuff up. This is right. Come on, man.
Yep. You know, he mentioned the point in that video about, he said about 400,000 came to North America, something like that. And when I don't know if y'all remember when we read that religious instruction of the Negro, it kind of confirmed that, but it divided it up to the different colonies that they went to.
Yeah.
But then it also mentioned how they bred and the population grew over time, you know. So that was an excellent point too. But them 7 nations, you know what I'm saying? The book of Daniel said, up under the whole heaven has not happened as it has happened to Jerusalem. So for anybody who want to make light of slavery, when we talk about what our people went through, compare that to any other nation of people on the earth who went through any kind of slavery or anything. Being transported from one part of the world to another. Now, that's different from being taken from one region. You know, if you're on a landmass, they take you from one area to another. We talking about a whole different part of the world, to the ends of the earth, like the Most High said. He scattered us by ships. And so this is a key point to know that the Most High is in control, because they did everything to us but wipe us out. And if they could, just based on the things that they have done, what do you think they would do?
I'm pretty sure they tried that disease trick, what they did with the Indians. I guess it didn't work. What y'all think?
Yeah. I mean, but that's still an indirect way of just saying, let's go and just slaughter them, you know, cold blooded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even to this day, you know, you look at the things they did to our people with syphilis and, you know, all these different types of things, all these different experiments. You know, these are just examples of, if they could, they would just, you know, cold-blooded. Like how you see, if you look at those videos and you see how these dudes go through these fields shooting pigs and stuff, shooting wild pigs and all that kind of stuff. That's what we're talking about.
Exactly. I think when we look at Psalms 83 and how they wiped away the remembrance of us, and I think that when we talk, I think that if we talk to anybody and they try to say, you know, all these, this person, the Israelite, ask them, do they fit Psalms 83? I mean, this guy right here talks about 7 nations, y'all. That right there was the key point for me. And all the other stuff, of course, fits the curses. But 7 nations? When did that happen to anybody else? Can y'all hear me?
Of course not. It ain't happening to nobody else. That's why they got to mimic. You know, that's why they don't want to hear our story, because they know it condemns them, all of them.
7 nations. You know, that's why I say we don't have to. one thing about when we talk about we're the true Israelites of the Bible, when they people come up and they hollering all these other people are, they have to go read a other book. They have to make up a history that they can't prove. We don't have to do nothing, man. We don't have to do nothing. All we got to do, we don't have to even know that this guy, I don't know if this guy know we the Israelites, right? All you got to do is just go to history. That's all we got to do.
It's more history to prove that they not the people than it is to prove we are. All we need is the Bible.
Yep. It's true.
They got their own scholars that prove that they not the people.
Yeah. I mean, you got Morton proving that the only skulls he find that face the same thing that we face in America was the Negro skulls. I'm saying skulls, yeah. So I don't understand why do our people try to add everybody in it when we got proof of evidence that a racist man not even trying to prove that we the Israelites. That's why I looked at that video Pastor Kelly did, and this I looked at a lot more, but this one right here with black coaching, they're not getting on here saying that we Israelites. They just bringing out the history. Common sense tell you who that is when you look at the history. Skulls in Egypt, there's Negroes to be enslaved.
Yo, that's because they want to believe that when he said, "My house shall be a prayer for all people," rather than see that we're all people, they want to believe that it means everybody, enemies and everybody, not realizing,
yeah,
like we're American, we're Mexican, we're Brazilian, we're Haitian, we're Jamaican, we're German, we're Greek, we're different societies of from different societies in Africa. We're all people. Shoot, we're even Russian. We Chinese. We Japanese. We Philippine. We Madagascar. You see what I'm saying? Do that sound like all people? I ain't name all people, but that sound like all people to me.
Exactly, because we scattered everywhere, man.
We scattered everywhere. We're not a nation yet. And when he do make us a nation, he didn't say a prayer for all people, because when he do make us a nation, he said he gonna give us a new name. Not only individually, he says, Beulah. Your land shall be called Beulah.
Right.
And you should be called Hepzibah. For you should be married. The Lord, you know what I'm saying? Delightful in marriage.
Y'all ever heard of this right here? I didn't know that. Okay, out of the ancestors' bones. Wow.
I know they built many cathedrals on top of our ancestors' bones. I know that much.
Crazy, man.
I know we in the catacombs of Italy, and we in the catacombs of France.
Well, I tell y'all what, anybody that's came into the truth, tell them I hope they watch and see all this evidence that we are the true Israelites. We even, they even took away our remembrance, even by taking books out of the scroll, out of the Bible. They even did it that way too. And now you got our people saying, "Oh, I don't want to read them books," but you'll go read a book, but your oppressors wrote. Crazy, man.
Yep. And because it's almost like our remembrance encompasses our past and our future. So they took a whole lot of stuff out of prophecy and held it back so that we can't recall what the Most High said from the days of old, what happened in our days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did a number. They did a number on us. And I'm like, you know what? I just need to every now and then go back because we may have some people coming in and give them more confidence that you are Israelite. You definitely are. So the Negroes, because we have proof of everything. I don't even know, to be honest. If anybody watched the debate between Alizé and the white guy, what Pastor Kelly was, or that brown dude, he said out his mouth he believed, the Igbos and the Limba, they Israelites. That's where we come from. He said out his mouth. So I think we the people, I think
Your sound went out, Kador.
sorry about that. My son calling me. He's gonna bring my grandson by here before he take him home. Yeah, I was saying that, man, look, we are the people, and anybody out here just coming to the truth. You're right. Yeah, he's mentioned Spain and Portugal. He's mentioned the Arab slave trade. Then he mentioned the Dutch, the Great Britain, and America. I mean, it's the same thing we talk about in the 400-year prophecy, y'all. That's why I think that when people look at Daniel and start to realize what Daniel saw, Daniel 7, verse 20, he see 10 horns, then he see 4 more beasts. 3 has fallen, and 1 come up with the little eye, which we know is America. But this guy saying the same stuff that we study, and not even, he's just giving history. And I just say, if we look at our history and read the Bible, you got to be, I don't know, something ain't got to be right if you can't understand that our history fits exactly what the Bible says. It's right there. So, but that's all I got. I just wanted to bring it out just in case somebody out here came into the truth and having a doubt. You don't need to doubt. We are the true Israelites of the Bible. We was the one enslaved in Egypt. We got the skulls. We got the evidence. We got the scripture. You know what? We got the scriptures. I mean, the script. We don't even have to look at the evidence. We got the scriptures that fit because everybody know our history. We got everything that falls right in place. I not haven't met one white person, y'all. Not one white person to go against that we are the true Israelites of the Bible. Not one white person I met. Even your boy Juan came on here. He couldn't go against it.
Right.
But guess what, y'all? I met plenty of black people. Because number one, they ignorant. They very ignorant when it comes to the knowledge of black history. We've been in slavery. They very ignorant that. They don't know the Bible because our preachers in the church, they hoop and holler, good God Almighty, and teaching you nothing. So they don't know the Bible. Number three, they believe it's best to be a Gentile than be an Israelite. I'm not lying. It's sad. So our people is the ones that I have problem with. But everybody else, most time all you got to read Deuteronomy 28. They'll stop and say, it got to be talking about y'all. That's it. But anyway, ready to close it down. My last words right there. Y'all want to get some words before we close?
Yeah, I just want to say this was a good topic. And for anybody who listening in who may not have heard this information before, hopefully this was edifying and it starts people like that on the road to discovery and recovery. Because like we said before, in order to truly know who the Most High is, we have to know who we are. He set it up that way. You know, and people will take offense to that, but everybody on this live didn't know who the Most High was until you learn who you are. So I want to give all praises to the Most High, the one and only God of Israel. Shalom and blessings to all you brothers and sisters once again.
Yeah, I just want to add, I want to read a little bit from Wisdom chapter 19. It starts at verse 1. As for the ungodly, wrath has come upon them without mercy unto the end. For he knew before what they would do, how that having given them leave to depart and sent them away hastily, they would repent and pursue them. For whilst they were yet mourning and making lamentation at the graves of the dead, they added another foolish device and pursued them as fugitives, whom they had entreated to be gone. For the destiny whereof they were worthy drew them unto this end. And I know this is talking about what happened in Egypt the first time, but I'm also looking at it at what may happen at Egypt this second time where we are at. It said, for the destiny whereof they were worthy drew them unto this end and made them forget the things that had already happened, that they might fulfill the punishment which was wanting to their torments, and that thy people might pass a wonderful way, but they might find a strange death. For the whole creature in his proper kind was fashioned again anew, serving the peculiar commandments that were given unto them, that thy children might be kept without hurt, as namely a cloud shadow in the camp, and where water stood before, dry land appeared, and out of the Red Sea a way without impediment, and out of the violent stream a green field, where through all the people went that were defended with thine hand, seeing thy marvelous and strange wonders. For they went at large like horses, and leaped like lambs, praising thee, O Lord, who had delivered them. For they were yet mindful of the things that were done, while they sojourned in the strange land, how the ground brought forth flies instead of cattle, and how the river cast up a multitude of frogs instead of fishes. But afterwards they saw a new generation of fowls, when being led with their appetite, they asked the delicate meats. For quails came up unto them from the sea for their contentment, and punishment came down upon the sinners, not without former signs by the force of thunders, for they suffered justly according to their own wickedness, inasmuch as they used a more hard and hateful behavior towards strangers. For the Sodomites did not receive those whom they knew not when they came, but these brought friends into bondage that had well deserved of them. And not only so, but peradventure some respect shall be had of those, because they use strangers not friendly. But these very grievously afflicted them, whom they had received with feastings, and were already made partakers of the same laws with them. Therefore, even with blindness were these stricken, as those were at the doors of the righteous man, when being compassed about with horrible great darkness, every one sought the passage of his own doors. For the elements were changed in themselves by a kind of harmony, like as in the psaltery, notes that change the name of the tune, yet are always sounds, which may be well perceived by the sight of the things which are done. For earthly things were turned into water, and the things that before swam in the water now went upon the ground. The fire had power in the water, forgetting its own virtue, and the water forgot its own quenching nature. On the other side, the flames wasted not the flesh of the corruptible living things, though they walked there, and neither melted they the icy kind of heavenly meat that was of nature apt to melt. And we be doing getting that ice. We get ice. Used to get ice up in Jersey. I said you put fire on that stuff and it wouldn't melt. I don't know if anybody's fire. We was literally burning the ice. The ice wouldn't melt. For in all things, O Lord, thou didst magnify thy people and glorify them. Neither didst thou lightly regard them, but did assist them in every time, in every place. Listen, they can keep on talking. They can keep on twisting the narrative. Like I said in the beginning, I believe the Most High, he's bringing them to a place where they're going to have to produce this evidence. And even so, even if he didn't, we all in for a great surprise anyway, because at any given time, we don't even know, but our nation could be born. I'm going to leave that right there.
You're exactly right. Thank you for that. All praise to the Most High. Don't forget to subscribe to TIR, Negroes Only channel too. Subscribe to here. We're all about the truth. We're all about the truth, right? That's why, we're not about, hey, if y'all got truth, I love it. And also I like to give thanks to the chat because y'all be bringing truth. I like the other night, it was last week sometime, y'all put the scriptures up there talking about these angels that destroyed y'all's brother Cliff, 2 Peter 2 and 4. But it's all about the truth, and it's all we're about. And we should always be about the truth. Doesn't matter if it hurts you. Hey, as long as you got the truth. Because if we have an agenda and go after a lie, it's going to be very damaging. We shouldn't do that. We're about the truth. We're going to stay about the truth no matter what. So, shalom, peace. We out.